Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whatever time it is in which you choose to be in community with us. I am Attorney Larry Fields, joined by the Mike Jones and the Dr. Charles Alexander, coming from a remote location. And we are here celebrating Holy Black History Month. And as a matter of fact, I do believe that yesterday
Yes,
marked the
100
100
years.
year anniversary, that being
Centennial.
February the 7th, of what started out initially as Black History Week. So we are in the 100th year mark of Black history celebration, reflection, and planning. Because we're not going to look at this as yeah, it's been commercialized or actually synthesized is probably a better way of looking at it and us looking.
Usurped.
It's certainly been usurped, Mike. That is
Yeah.
an excellent word. It has been usurped. And so we're going to look at it in this context and having that as a platform or a foundation, we're going to go local to St. Louis and look at what has been termed as the Mill Creek area. If you're in St. Louis, in and about St. Louis right now, the History Museum has an incredible exhibit that deals with a former black community known as the Mill Creek area. And I can tell you, spending just that 1 hour of which I hope to be at least 12 to 14 hours in the exhibit, that no St. Louis, no civil rights movement, no abolishment movement. That's how fundamental and important Black St. Louisans have been to that movement. So I will, at this point, defer to Mike Jones to lay the foundation for this morning or today's topic, and we'll take it from there. Dr. Jones.
Hey, good morning, my brothers, and good morning or good afternoon, or good evening, as you always say. That whenever you happen to pick up on us, uh, a little historical context, and I'm not a historical expert, but fundamentally, the St. Louis had a lot of creeks, and because this was wilderness in the 1700s. And the formal name of what you were talking about is the Mill Creek Valley. So it was a valley, a lower line geography, and it basically began to take shape in the 1830s, primarily German immigrants and black people who were not enslaved. Okay, so that at its inception, Mill Creek always had black residents, and it's maybe 20 blocks from the riverfront, from the west east bank of the west bank of the Mississippi River on the Missouri side. Goes about 20, it would be 20 blocks, what we call 20 blocks now. And I forget the basic acreage and geography, but it was a fairly large swath, and it would have been adjacent to what is the historical downtown. So you could think of there was the riverfront and all of the early development of St. Louis that developed in the 1700s. And then the next wave of development would literally have been in what is a large part of what we're calling Mill Creek. So that's its early St. Louis history. As the city evolved and kept going further west, uh, Mill Creek became more black. German immigrants left, went out replaced by other white immigrant populations. And so Mill Creek, by the end of the 19th century or so, is fundamentally a black community with its roots kind of deep in St. Louis. And since St. Louis was a relatively free city, say, think Baltimore, in a state that had slavery. Now, there was obviously enslaved black people in St. Louis as well. But so there was this interface that, as a matter of fact, you probably would have found early in a lot of urban areas in early 19th century America, Philadelphia, uh, Baltimore, part of the reason I think Frederick Douglass could successfully escape enslavement is he left from Baltimore because you had the ability to walk around. New York City, uh, a place with a lot of enslaved black people and a lot of black people who were not enslaved. Crazy as it seems, New Orleans the same way. So you kind of need to understand how Mill Creek could evolve as this vibrant black community. You kind of got to have uh, an understanding of 19th century urban America and race, which I'm not an expert on. Okay, and I'm not going to even pretend to be able to say that.
Well, apparently you stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night. You're doing just fine. You're doing pretty good. Go ahead, man.
Well, that's just the larger context, okay? And so from the 1880s, 90s, probably through World War II, Mill Creek became kind of the center of the black community. Now, uh, it had some upside and a lot of downsides because obviously in America and in a place like St. Louis and in a place like Missouri, wherever we were in math was not physically always the best place to be. Not that it didn't have some stuff, but it didn't have everything. So it was what is it? Like you said, life for them wasn't no crystal stair. Okay, so but it became this vibrant black community, and I always separate the notion of community from the notion of space. That community exists as a metaphysical thing that happens to be located in a geography, but community can exist without geography. And one of the things that we get wrong is on a regular basis now, I'm talking about black folks, so I'm not worried about anybody else. We confuse geography and community. And so we always end up being focused on the geography and not the metaphysical aspect of community. And I would, and I've seen the Mill Creek uh, exhibit. I went the first day it was open, and I'm not a curator, and I don't know anything about this, but for me, my first takeaway, and I'm going back. So you and I talked about that, but for me, it's an emphasis on the physical space and not a context of the metaphysical community that it was. Now, it, it references it, it alludes to it, but people who will walk through there will walk out more focused on the space than the people. And it's not because of the exhibit's fault per se. It's because that's the context they brought to it. And there's nothing in it that makes them have to think about what they're looking at different when they leave. Now, in the comments you would hear is, well, we had all of this stuff before they tore it down. And that was the reference uh, that you and I, the three of us had a text on when we started talking about this segment. And I said, well, there's a couple of ways to look at that. Mill Creek, there was some great stuff, but it was also physically not the best part of town. Not the, it was where we lived. So Bill Clay, first black congressman, founding member of the Congressional Black Caucus, he was born and raised in Mill Creek. And if you read his biography, and he said, but it was a cold water flat with a with an outdoor toilet at one point. Okay. Uh, my father's first barbershop was in Mill Creek. Literally, I don't know nothing about Mill Creek except I knew the barbershop. I didn't even know where. I knew where it was. I didn't have any larger contact. And but I didn't grow up there. In 1959, 56, we moved to a neighborhood in North St. Louis. Bill Clay in about 1956 moved to a neighborhood in the West End. So if you talk to somebody my age, and I'll be 77 in March, that and you talk to us about how we grew up, who we grew up, where we grew up. Now, my mother used to say, every crow thinks her baby is the blackest. So we all think we grew up in the best neighborhood in town, but we all grew up in these same neighborhoods. None of those neighborhoods that produced me and Dr. Gerald Horn, the historian whose sister was the curator at the museum, the history museum that put this together. All of us grew up in different neighborhoods, went to different high school, and we had this black community, and we all say, literally, anytime I bump into anybody that we came up together, that was the phrase, term of art, came up together. We all say the same thing. I wouldn't have wanted to be born, and I wouldn't have wanted to live any other place at any other time except the place I grew up in and the time we all grew up in. Because who we are is a function of that faith. Well, that's why this shit gets complicated. Because the space that created me and the space that allowed Bill Clay to have the beginning of a brilliant, impactful career, political career, wasn't Mill Creek. But those spaces ended up being created because somebody put a highway through that area and it got disbursement. Now, there's a lot of negative stuff about urban renewal. Done terribly of a whole lot of places, and our well-being was never considered. But it's also a more complicated story than that. I mean, all the high school rivals we talk about in St. Louis wouldn't have happened if we were all still jammed up in Mill Creek and you only had two high schools you could go to. Okay, so I can tell you that Beaumont High School created me. About 4 blocks away, the first black mayor for the city of St. Louis, Freeman Bosley, went to Central High School in the neighborhood he grew up in the neighborhood that was next to the neighborhood that I grew up in. So, so things change, people, communities evolve, and we have tendency to do a different kind of thing that white folks do. We romanticize our past the way they romanticize their past, and we create these creation myth stories too. And they serve a metaphorical and psychological reason. They exist for a reason. But if you're going to be in the leadership, you got to bring a little bit more sophisticated eye to the situation. You have to see the nuance, the complication that make up all of these times, because you're going to talk about later in another segment, and you mentioned it, no St. Louis, no civil rights movement. All of those cases, those two famous housing cases, they happened outside of Mill Creek. They happened because we was gone out of Mill Creek. We were all someplace else. Uh, 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 the bus in DC case was made possible because we weren't in Mill Creek anymore. We was throughout the city. So I mean, so our story is complicated, okay, and we just need to bring multiple lenses to it to figure it out. So Mill Creek to me is important because it captures the Black community in St. Louis and in America at a certain time. And it shows what Black people how Black people were capable of creating community, vibrant, impactful communities that produce extraordinary people inside of physical circumstances that were not always ideal. Now, to me, that's the takeaway of Mill Creek. And then the question becomes, what does that look like today? How do you do Mill Creek metaphysically today, like we did in the 1930s or the turn of the 20th century? So that's my barbershop non-trained intellectual frame of reference on it.
I think that is an incredible foundation. And that is, like I said before, apparently you stay, if you're not a historian, you stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night. Dr. Alexander.
That was awesome, as usual.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start backwards just so I get this out because I've been meaning to ask this question, Mike, for like forever. And every week I get caught up in whatever we're talking about, and I never ask. And that
That's
was,
what
oh,
that's what happens in the jam session,
that's
right?
what happens in the jam session. We start to improvise. I've been wanting to ask you since forever if you knew Gerald Horn.
Oh hell yeah!
Yeah.
Wow.
Man,
Wait a
that
minute.
guy is the most prolific writer in the world. This
Oh,
guy,
wait a minute.
yeah.
I know him. Wait a minute. He was a year ahead of me at Beaumont. Well, I mean, there are people that you should I know we went. No, we were friends in high school. We were all in the kind of in this larger. He kind of played football and did something else. I was trying to play basketball. So, and he lived a little north of Natural Bridge and west of Fairground Park. I live south of Natural Bridge at Fairground Park. But as you got bigger, all of these smaller neighborhoods started to conflate in this one big Beaumont neighborhood. So that the classes of say 63 to say 68, okay? And I came out in 67, he came out in 66. We were kind of all in the building at the same time together. And so we had this shared high school adolescent experience. If you would have told me, matter of fact, I
Wait
didn't
a
even
minute,
know
wait a
nigga.
minute, wait a minute, wait a
What?
minute. So this Gerald Horn that Dr.
Writes
Clark
everything.
always talking about, and all of these. That Gerald Horn is from St. Louis.
Is from St. Louis.
Man,
Beaumont class in
man, goodbye.
1966. Okay.
Goodbye, man. I'll talk to y'all later, man.
And so I've been meaning to ask you this since forever, and then so you referenced it today. So that is awesome. I could only imagine what it could look like when you guys actually sit down and talk, or whenever the last time you
Well,
was
you know
talking.
what? I would love to see Gerald again. We probably haven't seen each other in 40 years.
So I think we should make that happen. So as for today, I think one of the things about Mill Creek and this too, like I've developed this this great appreciation for timelines, because I think timelines help us to actually better put into perspective what is going on. And because and I'm talking about Black folks in particular right now, we tend to think of things in isolation. And so when we think about Mill Creek, it's almost impossible for it to be anything other than what we actually know it to be. Part of that 20,000 was a bunch of folks who came here with absolutely jack doodly squat. Right. So it couldn't have been great. And anybody who suggests that it was all great are kind of stuck in this place of, the well, it's easier for me to just say romanticizing, stuck romanticizing our past. But it does require that we consider a few things about St. Louis, and this too puts into total context, like how we get all the way to to a Mike Brown. So we got to start with the fact that what is the French come here and just do craziness to the indigenous population, right? They bring us, and they bring some mixture of some free Black folks come with them too, but the French introduced slavery into what becomes the state of Missouri, and so along with that comes history of violence, subjugation, and displacement, cultural degradation, and the whole nine. So that's what this thing is predicated on. And so we fast forward, we get through all of this stuff, came across something the other day, and we mentioned in the green room about the exhibit that the History Museum has, St. Louis First, and one of the things that I came across the other day, I don't think it's in this exhibit, but St. Louis might be the first place in which there was a random extrajudicial lynching of a Black man in the United States. The lynching of Francis McIntosh occurred in St. Louis in 1836. He was a free man, and he got caught up in some madness in the streets, and he was minding his own business. Something else was going on. They mistakenly thought he was involved in the foolishness that was going on. I think he killed two people who was trying to hurt him. And then he ended up the victim of mob violence, was lynched in St. Louis. He may be the first Black person in the United States that died as a result of, lynch law, so to speak. That's St. Louis, right? And so, of course, then we get to, we ultimately get to what's my man? I can blanking on his name now with the freedom and law and all that stuff. He went to the court case in St. Louis.
Dred Scott.
Dred Scott. We get the Dred
And
Scott.
let's look at that too. I mean, just a side note, how diabolical was it for you to name him Dred? But go ahead, Doc.
So,
Oh,
thing
Larry,
that
Joe, hold your thought, man. You ain't old enough to forget it, so hold it for just a
no,
minute.
I might. I forgot his name.
Okay, Hey, Larry, maybe his nickname was Dred because they hated to see him coming.
They hated to see him coming.
Yeah. Oh man, Dred showing up. Okay, put it in a
Well,
schoolyard context.
call me Calamity Larry.
And I don't actually know who named them. I mean, they may not have named them,
They
but
may not have, but that was a common trait to name
yeah.
to name us disparaging things. But go ahead, Doc.
But one of the things that we have to know about Dred Scott and um the state of Missouri, that the reason that he filed suit, he and his wife, is that this notion that if you left Missouri and went to a free state, you were free. That precedes that he filed his case based on accepted court precedent in the state of Missouri. So there were hundreds.
Well set precedent.
There were hundreds of cases in the state of Missouri in which folks had filed and received the freedom for such. Another case that we have to be mindful of, this is not a St. Louis case, this is a larger Missouri case. I think it's a Jeff City situation. This is the Celia, who was purchased and literally was purchased to be a sex slave, and eventually killed her master. And as a response of her killing her master because he continued to rape her, she got lynched.
She
right?
was hung.
She was hung, right? And so, so we just go through all of these things and things and things and things and things and things and things. And then we get more proximal to Mill Creek. St. Louis is one of the first, if not the first, to actually have an housing ordinance predicated on race. So the 1916 ordinance, that's what it exists for. It exists to dictate that Black folks and white folks can't live together. So Black folks couldn't buy on a street that was, 75% or more white, and white folks couldn't buy on a street that was 75% or more Black. So separation, this whole thing, this is the nature of this place. That's this whole thing. St. Louis, the whole state. This is what this thing is. This is what it does. And so, even though that ordinance got overturned by the Supreme Court, I don't know if that was the Missouri State Supreme Court or the U.S. Supreme Court, but that ordinance got overturned in a year. However, all that happened was the development, what started off as an ordinance that got overturned by the courts became, literally kind of like this real estate practice, and that was the restrictive covenants. And so if you put
Now, Doc, in all honesty, in 2022, the Missouri Real Estate Brokers Association apologized.
We can't forget that. You're right. And so we gotta we have to conceptualize, we gotta add that to our case conceptualization. Like all of those kind of, so we got exodusters coming from, the deep south, who are crossing the Mississippi River. Some of them are en route to Kansas, some of them are en route to, Iowa and Michigan and Illinois, but but they're coming through St. Louis, and most of these people don't have much. Of course, some of them may, but the majority of them don't, right? In the midst of all of that, what else happens? We also have the Depression. So again, we have all of this stuff going on. We have what was that? The Home Loan Corporation, and so we have the onset of redlining and things of that nature, and so we have all of this housing discrimination. So fundamentally, what Mill Creek is where we could live. And that's how we got to kind of look at this thing. And we got to kind of look at also the impacts then of what comes with redlining, right? You can't get financing to do improvements, which is why 80% of Mill Creek was without at least one utility. You might have electricity, you ain't got water. You got water, you ain't got electricity, right? And so this is the kind of stuff that existed. And so, but when we look back on it, yes, I think we definitely have to address the tragedy that becomes the displacement of 20,000 people, particularly those who didn't receive compensation. But I think we can do that and do that in a historically accurate way. But that's not how the mind works. And Mike, he kind of spoke to that, because that's what this romanticizing is. It's a psychological defense mechanism. And so within that, what we do mainly is selectively attend. We just pick and choose. We just necessarily pick the best part of whatever, and that's what we lay all of this on. But really, this was a tragic thing, and it's and it too. What we have to really take from this is that this too is another example of state-sanctioned violence, because the demise of it starts in the 40s in the conversations about urban renewal, and they sell it. They sell urban renewal in St. Louis in part to the NAACP, because they tell them that we're going to get rid of all of this decrepit, outdated housing, and we're going to put these people in new housing. And so the NAACP is clapping. It's like, yeah, let's do this. But of course, that's not what happens. Now, even if that was the goal of the federal government, as with many things for us, when those things are administered at the state and local level, they never turn out to be what they were said to be. And so these are the things that we're looking at. And so, so we have urban renewal, and then we have Eisenhower come in, and the establishment of the U.S. highway system. It's a wrap. This is what happened. This is how it happened. And some of these things we're still battling to recover from, but they also, all of these things add, are really the foundation of your earlier statement, Larry. No St. Louis, no civil rights.
So to the scenario that you just laid out, my reaction is this, and I'm really specifically saying it like this because this is February and this is Black History Month, and rather than play Jeopardy like who was the first black president and the first black astronaut, which really are irrelevant questions, I would phrase I take away from history and basically what you just laid out about Mill Creek, but our history in general is we are always hitting with two strikes on us. We always playing with 4 fouls. Okay, that is how the game comes to us. Okay, and we keep trying to say no, it don't have to be like that. No, we're black in America. We go all and that's the thing that has changed for us generationally over the last 50 years. We got there was a period of time when our cultural infrastructure prepared us to be disciplined hitters because you always gonna have two strikes on you. So white folks get three strikes and they out. We play hardball, man. You know, well, one strike and you're gone. Okay. White folks got 5 fouls to start the game. You go have 3 or 4. Learn not to reach and slide your feet. Okay. So you become fundamentally sound in a way that's a function of the construct of the game for you. And what we ought to be celebrating is how we take that, internalize it, and overcome it, as opposed to romanticizing what we can do. And uh, 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 and you then say, in fact, here's how good I am at this point. I'm gonna foul off 2 pitches and now pitch to me because I don't think you can get me out. I don't think you got uh, 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 a a pitch that I can't hit even with one strike on it. I want us to be like Satchel Paige, who they were barnstorming and they were playing against a team that had Ted Williams on it, and they had in the last inning they had a 3-run lead or something like that, and in the ninth inning, Ted Williams it was 2 out, and Ted Williams would have had to be the fourth guy to come up with 2 outs, and nobody was going to get that many hits off Satchel Paige. So Satchel Paige walked the bases loaded so he could pitch to Ted Williams with the bases loaded in the ninth inning when a hit or home run would have won the game. That's the attitude you're supposed. And he struck him out, by the way.
Say it again, Mike.
Right.
I mean,
Okay.
because we really that the premise that you laid is one. And when you think that you are in a neutral territory, your behavior is freaky when you are when you're on the road. You got
Yeah.
I mean, it is really you have malpractice written behavior when you think you're on neutral ground here and you're operating in this construct. So I mean that cannot, I love what you said, but I don't, and you fail to have enough emphasis because it is so important. And coming from you, someone that has put legislation together, that has tried to overcome these things, it cannot be said loudly enough, Mike Jones.
Well, as you were saying that, I thought about what I tell folks about politics or being a politician, or being a black politician, is probably is applicable to being just a black man or woman in America. And I would have regularly said for 30 years, 30 plus years, if you're a politician, because I say this to white politicians, I say if you're a politician, but I say black politician at this point, you need to think like an athlete who's playing on the road, basketball player playing on the road. And when you're on the road, the the fans in the stands are not rooting for you. They may respect your game. They may come to watch you because you can play, but they don't want to see you win. That's the fans. The referees historically, when you're in high school back in the day, the home team always paid the referees. So the referees are not going to give you any calls. You're not going to get any calls when you're on the road. Everything that can go either way will never go your way. So the fans are against you. The ref's not going to give you any call. But if you want to be a champion, you got to win on the road. So you got to learn how to not care where you play. I'll
So,
play you
so, so,
anywhere.
so I shouldn't be bothered if somebody sends out a meme of me looking like something that is not me, or not my wife. I shouldn't be bothered by that.
Oh, you can be bothered. Wait a minute. You should have the Michael Jordan response, where because everybody in the NBA would tell you that the last thing you wanted to do was aggravate him, because you think you're getting your ass kicked now. You ain't. This is true. You know, I love these reels of watching these old ball players play. And I forgot who was telling this story. No, it was Byron Scott. I forgot who he was playing with. He said he wasn't with the Lakers at the time. They were playing with somebody, and he said Mike was having a bad night.
And when he was with the
Say,
Pacers.
yeah, I think so. The Pacers or Charlotte. He said he was like 4 for 16, and Phil had taken him out the game. Man, they was down by 17 or 20 in the fourth quarter. You know, so we'll just mail the rest of this in. And they had this young brother that he was having a good night, and Jordan was on the bench, and he hit a couple of shots and said, "Yeah, Michael wasn't falling for you tonight." You know, he said, Scott said, Jordan goes back in the game in the fourth quarter with 10 minutes to go and scores 24 points. He said, we lose by 10. And near the end of the game, he hits the shot and walks over to our bench where the kid is sitting on the bench now and say, "Shut up, bitch." That's how you handle that. You bust their ass and say, "Shut up, bitch." That's the answer. That's the only fucking answer. That's the only acceptable response. It's like your folks telling you to go back outside and have a fight when you said you let somebody take your lunch money. Ain't but one answer. I'm busting.
And you know, given our conversation, is that not what happened? Right? You know, so
Yeah.
that's so you look at that Mill Creek, you know, that's how we get the congressman, right? You know,
Right.
that's and it's not just, and we get so much, right? That's how we get the neighborhood that
That
Mike
produced me and
Jones
Gerald Horn.
and a Gerald Horn. That's how we get this. This is the community's response. This is the fuck you bitch.
Right.
I am, Doc. I'm so glad that you said that. I really am, because we never give ourselves the credit for the advances that we have. We are great at issue spotting, which is good. But at some point, you have got to identify the fact that, number one, this is probably the easiest time in history to be Black in America, despite what's going on. We're looking at what we have had to deal with in the past, and what our ancestors have had to deal with. There's still some general privileges that we certainly take for granted that our ancestors had to fight and die for. But at the same time, we should never be satisfied until we get to a place where all of our folks can experience self-actualization.
And
And
so we keep tinkering with this thing. To your point, Larry, it's like, and so, and that's why we do what we do. So, like, I came up with I mean, I ain't come up with. I came across this other piece from the world of from kind of from the world of elementary education. It's applicable for everything. African diasporic literacy, and so it has four fundamentals. Communalism, empowerment, intentionality, and it's interdisciplinary, right? That is us. That's what we do. This is what this is, right? And so, like, so like Mike was speaking earlier, like I was doing this and I didn't have a name for it. I didn't know what to call it. This is what we do. What we do is being referred to in educational settings as African diaspora literacy.
Let me ask you this, Dr. Alexander, along those lines. You mean, so we've never stopped being African, even when we've been over here, without that being in front of us?
We've never stopped being African. I mean, and like this too, like, you go back and you look at all of this stuff, so we have two things going on, right? So we have people making kind of this overt, so we've had this conversation in particular before. You can go back to the convention movement. One of the things that you notice, whether you're reading the convention movement or whether you're just a student of history otherwise, we have the African Methodist Episcopal Church. We have the Free African Society. We have, in Prince Hall Masonry, the African Lodge. We got on and 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 on these things that we called ourselves African.
Repeat those four things again, Doc, please.
The African Methodist Episcopal Church.
No, I'm talking about the four African
the aspects of African diaspora literacy. One is communalism, right? So again, we do this together. We do this in concert, and like we've expanded. We do this with the brothers in LA. So that's the communal aspect of it, of course. Empowerment. The purpose, the reason that we do this, the reason that we level set is to give people good information, to give people sound foundation for them to fight this fight. It's intentional. Learning and teaching are intentional. You can't, these are things that you set out to do. And it's interdisciplinary. We convene with psychologists, a political scientist, and a lawyer, at least one lawyer, every week to talk about all types of things. And so this is kind of what this piece is. And so, so of course there was this time where, because again of larger dynamics, some aspect of the leadership at a time decided, we need, if we keep saying we African, then they'll think that we want, that everybody wants to go and everybody don't want to be a part of these colonization schemes. So maybe we should go away from that name. So that's how some of that stuff happens. But it don't make that name go away for everything. And it don't change who you are fundamentally.
Because you're an eagle. You're an eagle in a chicken coop. Does not make you a chicken.
You still an eagle, right? You ain't gonna never be a hyena. You're gonna still be a lion.
That's
and
correct.
So that part does not change. And so we are that, and our effort. Our continuous fight has to be always to reaffirm that. And, and then we always got to, like, even when we're doing our critiques, we got to figure out and discern what was the cause and what is the effect. Because too many times, we again, because of this impact on us, we misattribute us as a cause, and our maladies are purely the effect. This
They're
is what it looks.
they're all structural.
Yes, and this is what life in this situation, generation after generation. This is what it creates. We gotta fight that, and that's in part what we do.
We have to fight the institutional constructs that have got us in this position. And we need to reject
Larry,
this individualism, this rugged individualism that has been cast among us because it simply plucks us apart. Yes, sir, Mr. Jones.
yeah, and I was just going to say that we have a responsibility inside of the context that Charles just defined, that is 100% right on. That because we're not the cause of our condition does not eliminate our responsibility to correct our condition. See, you can't say, well, you know what your mama used to tell you when she said, clean that up. And you said, I didn't do it. And she said, clean it up anyway. That's what it is. Whether we did it or not, you got a responsibility to clean it up for us. Not saying, well, they did it, when they go fix it. They ain't gonna never fix it.
Ever.
Because they did this because it's to their benefit.
That is correct. That is correct. But we fail to have the proper predicate constantly, and we think that policies are some sort of way neutral, and we impute the mal result personally, and it's not. I mean, there is an entire body of law, the vast majority of which are to be extracted upon us to our detriment, and we need to understand that. And so that, like you told the brother studying that also, Mike, you ain't know that. I mean, you on the road. What'd you tell him? You talking about something, they racist. You ain't know that? Well, that's cool. What you gonna do about it anyway?
Right.
That's the mindset we have to have. Everybody in the stadium knows where we going with the ball. But we got to put a hat on a hat and to move the pile to our advantage. And
I was going to say, we're always playing on the road.
We're always
playing. And let me tell you who got the best road record in the history of basketball. The Harlem Globetrotters. Every game they play is on the road, okay? So don't tell me you can't win on the road, especially when your opponents play like the Washington Generals. So that's what white America is, the Washington Generals. We ain't got no excuse for losing to them, ever.
But see, we've got to defy the myth. See, we've been told that this construct was created by great men. But I just finished Chinua Achebe's There Once Was a Country, and there was a line in there that struck me as just, like a bolt of lightning. All of these places are run by mediocre people.
Right.
They are all run by mediocre people. How many Charles Alexanders do you think are in the cabinets of any of these gubernatorial party or gubernatorial hierarchies are in the president's cabinets? They're not. You got a bunch of mediocre individuals that are creating policies for mediocre people to prosper. That's it. And the oligarchs are controlling the whole thing.
Well, they don't care. They just want the money.
That's it. That's all they want.
And they pay for the leadership.
That is or the people. That is, I guess you could call it leadership loosely. Yeah,
Right.
but
And you know what? Just to be give ourselves a free boy because it doesn't stop what we have to do.
no,
But if I look at America and if white supremacist America, if the best you got is Donald Trump and them, y'all have already lost. Okay, that they can't beat nobody. But here is what I would say to us: if you lose, if I was the coach and we was my team, and that's the trash we was playing, I'd say the only way you're getting on the airplane with me to go home is you got to win the game. Because if we lose to them, I don't give a shit how y'all get home. I'm taking the plane and going back. But ain't nobody gonna be on it but me. And cause nobody black should lose to them ever. It ought to cause that's the garbage. That is the bottom of the barrel. And you can't call yourself a player if you lose to them.
mm. Mike, I think that sums it up, and that gives us everybody. We're talking about interdisciplinary action. I don't care what discipline you
Yeah,
are
but
in. That is appropriate. Dr. Alexander, you have any closing remarks?
Yes. And this kind of so there are steps. There are steps to this process. This ADL process, this African
Diaspora.
diaspora learning. One, identify and name oppression and their constituent components. Two, learn about their own history as healing antidote against oppression. When this is saying there in this piece, in that sentence,
And
is us learning about our history. Three, imagine possibilities for a better world. Four, take reflective actions to interrupt ongoing oppression. Five,
man, you
organize.
running through these, man. People trying to write these down. What's three?
Imagine possibilities for a better world.
Okay. And what's four?
Take reflective actions to interrupt ongoing oppression.
Okay.
And five, organize and collaborate with others who are seeking to dismantle oppressive structures. And so, and you know that there's many times like we actually do a very good job of identifying and naming the problems. We do need to be we do need to get increasingly better in terms of naming, oppression and its constituent parts. And and we need to be more serious and intentional in terms of, not just learning our history, but employing our history as that healing antidote, understanding that, it's not just supposed to be on the shelf. Part of this is about pattern recognition. Part of this is being able to leverage those wins, right? And to know that, we can do this. And there's got to put another word out there, so what we do too much of is the romanticizing piece. And so the romanticizing piece again is it's a defense mechanism, and usually occurs because right now it's just tough. It's a little hard, right? And so we harken back to this other time. Now, in order to make this other time good, it really kind of requires that we pick and choose, so we selectively attend. We don't take all of everything that's going on. Um, and so we look for these particular times, and it gives us some matter of control of a given situation. But to me, I think the worst part about the romanticizing piece is that it often is used as a means to get us off the hook, right?
It absolves us of our current responsibility.
It absolves us
You
of
know,
our current responsibility.
but it's like saying, well, we lost because the referees cheated.
When we lost,
No, we lost because we didn't play. We lost because we didn't play well
good.
enough.
We got to get it right now.
We
got
knew
to
the
get it right
referees
now.
don't cheat.
We lost
Right.
because we didn't get to the free throw line when we was in the bonus.
Yeah.
That's and so I tried.
And we knew that, and we playing on the road, so we knew the referee wasn't gonna give you no call, so that can't be cute.
Yeah.
Right. And
So back in the day has absolutely nothing to do with your progress today.
Nothing. Now, but what we can do is reframe, and reframing is a little different than romanticizing. So reframing is actually looking at the situation and extracting and intentionally acknowledging, those issues that are, those critical issues that require attention. And so in reframing, what you're actually doing is naming the oppression and its constituent parts and understanding how that larger thing has impacted on what it is that you can and can't do, right? And so that's reframing as opposed to the romanticizing piece of this. But even with the romanticizing piece of this, we got to understand that too is one of that response is an option for an oppressed person, an oppressed, traumatized person. We got to understand that too is an effect. It's not a cause, it's an effect. This is what it starts to look like.
Charles, I was just thinking as you said that about the effect on a oppressed person. And the movie that Omar Epps was in with James Caan was the football movie. He was a college player. And there's a scene in there where this line came up, and that's the way I think we have to look at oppression. He got his bell rung, and James Caan came over to him. He's laying on the ground. And James Caan asked him, he said, "Are you hurt or are you injured?" And Omar Epps said, "Well, what's the difference?" And James Caan said, "Well, if you injured, you can't play. But if you hurt, get your ass up and get back in the game." So the question is, are you hurt or are you injured? If you're injured, I'm gonna set you down because I don't want you in the game if you injured, because you ain't gonna get it done. But if all this is your feelings hurt, you hurt, man, you got to keep it. Shit, I can't take you out the game for that. We took a timeout, have some water, and I'm gonna tell you, suck it up and go on back out there.
Yep.
That is correct.
So some of us have been injured.
Some of us have been,
but most of us just hurt.
Yes. And we don't want to play.
And we play in today's NBA. So AD gonna get $60 million for sitting out the rest of the year.
They call them playing clothes.
Now, wait a minute. And I'm going to use the NBA as what I think is our problem with we've lost our standards for leadership, because we do this all the time. There is no way Anthony Davis, Westbrook, a whole bunch of them in the 75, because by then it was marketed, can't be one of the, if you take the first 75 players, greatest players in the history of the NBA, ain't none of them meet the qualification of great. Now they outstanding athletes and but they ain't great players. Great is a whole nother. That's like saying, I play trumpet and it's me, Winton, and Louis Armstrong. No, it ain't. It's Louis Armstrong and Winton, and I'm a trumpet player. Okay,
And you got
so
your axe with you. That's all. You just got your axe with
right, but I mean, we have as America, white folks are running out of white talent, and they watered theirs down. We're not running out of black talent, but we allow people to emerge into leadership without earning the space. Okay, it's where you went to school, who your daddy was, and you used to have being somebody's prodigy was never enough. You had to be able to stand on your own ground in order to get the respect that went with being, because you would hear true conversations. Oh, yeah, he better than his daddy. And the other one was, no, he ain't his daddy, which means that he ain't his daddy, and we ain't got to take him. Okay, that's his son. I know why he love him, but he ain't you, man. And until we can get back to that intentionality and that rigor about who we put on the list to be the communal leadership, we go always have this problem. We're going to continue to lose games we shouldn't lose because we continue to let the wrong players be on the floor and on the team. And that's on us. That ain't on white folks.
And that exactly is where, that's a part of where that intentionality shows forth. And so, so I came across this doing some reading in my daily reading, and so this concept of diaspora literacy starts with a sister, Joyce King. I think she was writing on this in the 80s, and then this other sister, I think Gloria Boutte, I think that's how you pronounce her name. She added the African piece to, added African. So it started off same concept, but just tweaked it a bit. But it's about those four components and about those processes to implement it. Those things are designed. Those sisters came up with those conceptualizations to facilitate, our children's battle in this space, right? And so, I mean, and we talked about it here, like, like this is where we just got to be realistic about what it is that we're working with, So, okay, so yes, we send our kids to, to the enemy to teach them. Okay, how many all black schools do we have? Some of our kids I mean, that's the nature of the beast. So if that's the nature of the beast, then we have to put forth the response. So if that's where the majority of our kids got to go, then we have to have the appropriate response for that circumstance.
And what does that look like, Doc?
It looks like this. It's implementing things that look like the African diaspora literacy. And it is, and so
and it can be looks like Saturday school.
It could be in school if your school allow, if you can, if you got the teachers that want to implement these things, then this is where you got to spend that time with those teachers, because the other piece, again, is communal. We can't keep just saying it's the teachers, right? So even if the school is inclined to do it, and Mike has spoken about this too, in terms of when he was working with the school board, like, you can dictate if you're in a situation where you can dictate what the curriculum is, then that's your responsibility, right? And so that has to happen. Now, if you're not in that kind of situation, then you either you gotta create, you gotta be a part of some kind of Saturday peace, or you have to create that peace in your home for your child. But we can't be today. We can't be today. We can't be on this 36,501st day of Black history. We can't be on this day talking about what they don't teach our kids.
That's correct.
We have to be intentional about that. And so the other thing that we almost never do, and this is a big general I never hear adults take responsibility. I talking to people 50, 60, and 70 years old, steady telling me what they ain't know because of what them people ain't teach them when they went to school. We have to be intentional about what we are consuming. And if we want our young people to know it, then it's our responsibility first and foremost. And
let's stay there, Doc.
And that's what we got to do.
Let's stay there for 1 second and we can close the show out. The notion of educating a child that you were fortunate enough to be able to bring into the world, the sole education is whose responsibility?
The parent.
And it starts there. So if that is your responsibility, everybody that comes into contact with that child is an agent that you're allowing to come into contact with that child. They are working for you to make sure that because you decided to not homeschool your child and to delegate the education or some aspect of it to someone else. Those are your agents. They are acting on your behalf. And therefore nothing with the teacher should be personal. To the extent that teacher is not serving your child is to the extent that they will be eliminated. And that has to be the mindset. You are personally the promoter and the advocate for that child, and anyone that is not in that child's best interest needs to be replaced. Where, no permanent friends, as Bill Clay would say, just permanent interest. And the interest is the edification of this child. And that's the attitude we've got to take with that. And
that's the infrastructure again that we got to build.
Well,
we have to build that.
Charles, and I want to go to that point. Larry, here's why I'll take an exception to the point that you just raised. Because it presumes that I have control over the ecosystem that my child is going to have to be in. Now, I got complete responsibility. So one of the things that I have to be able to do and be willing to do is make adjustments to do the thing that Charles was just talking about. I sent him to school over here because he can get X and he's going to need X. But they're not going to give him Y and Z because they don't want him to have it or don't know how to do it. So then I have to figure out how to get him to Y and Z, and because he's going to need X, Y, and Z to be okay. So it's not like if I'm Jeff Bezos and a billionaire, I can dismiss the help and get new help. If I'm the help, then I'm figuring this out. And it's hard. It's difficult. It ain't easy. But that's where the intentionality and the dedication you was talking about come in. That I do this, that I get up on Saturday morning, make him get up or her get up on Saturday morning, and we drive this, and they don't want to go because they don't necessarily know why they're going, and you'll find all that out later. And along the way, when you get old enough, I need to explain to you why we did this and why did that. My father had a great skill that by the time I got to be 15, 16, he said, I'm going to explain this to you. Not tell me what to do. I'm going to explain this to you. He said, because when you were 8 and 10, I could tell you what to do. But at 16, you need to know why you need to do this, because you'll be confronted with this kind of stuff, all right, And you don't need to say the reason I'm doing this because my daddy told me. Your daddy got to be able to give you the reason why this is important now. Because he said you're about to be as grown as you're ever gonna be. Okay, not as old as you're gonna be, not as wise as you're gonna be, not as mature as you're gonna be, not as experienced as you're gonna be. But you as grown as you're ever going to be, which means everything you do or don't do now has consequences for your life. And
Mike,
part,
and I understand exactly what you're saying, but I think as a parent, you make a way.
but that's
And
what I'm talking about. But
yeah,
it's your job to
yeah,
make the way,
yeah,
right?
you're going to have to make a way. We see it done in athletics all the time.
All the time.
There's not a child that doesn't have a personal trainer that wants to play on their high school team now. There's not a child.
That's
Yeah,
that that. So
That part,
again, so like that's clearly a class piece.
right?
And so, and that's where I'm saying we have to build the infrastructure as absolutely a good example of intentionality, but it that can't be the rubric or for the masses, because and that's that's just another part of the evolving look of this thing that we have to pay attention to, and like because what I would say to that piece is that is definitely an example of you can't have it both ways, right?
Right.
So for
Dr.
those of
Alexander,
us,
Doc, I'm just coming out of that, not fresh, and I can tell you across each and every economic strata,
no,
you're
it's not.
finding that. I mean, because I've been in the gyms with them, man.
I've been in the
I-
gyms too.
yeah, I
That's
mean,
just the
and
majority. The
and
majority. That's more of a class piece. But again,
Now, if you're at the
but what we
elite,
got to look at is that.
here's
So when we look at the processes, number two, learn about your own history. Three, imagine possibilities. Four, take reflective actions. Literally, that. So if you look back historically, if we go back to the midst of the Bible all the way through now, what most of whatever it is that we're looking at when we're talking about whoever the hero is, that hero is usually coming from a position of
privilege.
yes.
yeah,
And so
uh,
the masses typically don't have time to sit around and just randomly contemplate their history. They don't have time. Now they might dream, but they ain't really got time to contemplate reflective actions against oppression. They trying to eat.
they're in survival mode.
They're in survival mode. And so that's what I'm saying. So it's
I
in the
understand what
context
you're
of
saying,
that
Miguel. I
that
understand
we
that
have to
to a
build
degree
the
that.
requisite infrastructure for to be able to implement these things on a widespread. Now, that being said,
Now,
back to
so
your metaphor, we have a whole class of folks who do exactly what you just said, while not supporting the institutions that we need to fight this fight. Right. So I don't have the money for this, but I got $4,000 for my son to play travel basketball.
now,
Now,
so
mhm.
on that point, I'll go political for a minute. It's we've let these class biases for upper middle class black folk destroy the agenda for the mass of black people who are working class. So when is the last time you've heard a black political leader or a black civic leader of any note give a speech about the importance of public education, affordable housing, jobs? If I had $1 for every time somebody was talking to me about minority participation and business development and wealth creation, I'd be rich. Okay, so the reality is we had a politics historically that was built around what we needed for the most of us, and the best of us sacrificed and threw their lot in with the with the masses, and that was the agenda. I mean, there's an army or military cliche that says, no, it's really a rule. Officers eat last. Okay, officers eat last because there's gonna be food for them, and if the officers eat first, after they feed the officers, they don't tell them who gonna get a chance to eat. So when you're thinking, so the real point is you could send your kids to private school, but my political agenda is public schools. Why? Because most black kids can't go where my kid goes to school.
That part.
And so you separate my privilege from our needs. That's a leadership issue.
And
Okay.
at the same
I
time,
should
Mike, but the thing that's most concerning to me, at the same time, their emphasis is on, minority contracting and so forth. Yet we are no more self-reliant than we have been historically. So, I mean, where is the impact?
wait a minute. Do you know where? Let me tell you where contractors ultimately come from. They come from workers. And here's what I mean. You start out as an apprentice to become a journeyman, and maybe you got some skills and ambition, and you become a foreman. And because you're real good at supervision, you end up becoming a project, the supervisor of a big construction deal. And because of that, you end up a project manager. And you look around, you know how to run a construction company because you've been through those steps. But it took 20 years. Now, what we got, folks, we got people like leaving high school and going to the NBA. Yeah, I think I want to start a construction company. So my point is, if you just created the base for the masses of black folks, there would be a migration to the top because there'll be folks who cool where they are, and there'll be other folks who decide, no, I like this, but this ain't what I want to do. So you, Bill Clay or Mike Jones, you figure out how to get up the ladder. But somebody got to put you in the game. And what we try to do is pick winners or say, yeah, it ought to be so and so. No, man, throw all y'all out there. Let me see who can play. And then I'm going to get the puppies with the biggest paws. Okay, how they do, and eventually it's always going to be a pyramid.
Yes.
But the question is, I need to know that talent got you to the top of the pyramid, not privilege. And the only way I can do that is to make opportunity democratic, not results democratic, opportunity democratic. I started my political career at the start of minority participation and all of that. And minority participation wasn't a program then. When whether it was Coleman Young, Maynard Jackson, Marion Barry, it was the tax that white commercial interests paid to black political interests to support and advance their project, period. Same way gangsters do it. If you want this, where am I in all of this? We took power, gave it to some soft-ass bourgeois Negroes, and they turned it into a program, a welfare program for themselves. And do you know why you came up with numbers like 25%? Because that's all you could process. Like you didn't take more dope off the boat than you could sell. Okay. But if I was a black man, I wouldn't have a program with a percentage on it. Because if I get to call the shot, why would I put a number on myself? Now you think about that. You got black mayors saying I need 25%. Shit, I might be able to get 75. Shit, we might be able to get all of it.
Because you're 100, you 80% of the population.
No, I'm sitting in the
I'm,
chair that makes the decision. Shit,
I
I
know.
don't care what
I'm saying you are an 80% city that's black. Why in the world would you limit yourself to 20% of the contract?
no, but Larry, I'm gonna do it like this. If you fought to sit in the chair, why would you limit yourself? You
You
limit
shouldn't.
yourself.
No, I'm agreeing
Yeah,
with you.
right.
You shouldn't.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
absolutely should not.
but it's not based on because we 70% of the population
Um,
over 60%. Yeah,
I mean, that just makes it is not based on that, but it just makes it more ridiculous to me.
now, now I'm gonna use my lens as having done this for my life. No, for me, you using the population as a rationalization tells me you too soft to be this. Because the answer to why we doing it, because we can't. Okay, it ain't no more simple, no more complicated than that. I'm doing it because I can. And you can't make me sorry that I'm doing it. Because I can make you sorrier if you try. Now that's how this game goes. And the fact that 80% of the people look like me and they go participate and they gonna be happy, that's fine. I'm glad for that. But that ain't why we here, man.
You know,
We here because
it
I
just
me,
reminds me,
huh?
it just reminds me of the situation we had in St. Louis City when we had a black comptroller, a black president of the automatic board, and a black mayor. And we still had a disadvantaged program. And in order to get a contract, the vast majority of black vendors would have to still fill this application out through that problem. And it just was lunacy to me.
But it's not it's being illiterate when it comes to power. Uh,
Absolutely.
uh, uh, uh yeah, and part of uh, I think I told you all this story once 100 years ago. We in the schoolyard and we all about 16, and Farragut was one of them places that the real games couldn't start till the big boys showed up. I mean, you 12, 14, because if y'all doing something, they're gonna make you stop, and now the players are here, so it happens like that. So this one day, it's 8 or 9 of us, and like I say, we 16 or so, something like that, sophomore, juniors in high school, and somebody said, "Well, hey, we got enough to play." They're shooting shoes up and start to play. And somebody else said, we can't play, we can't start playing yet because the big boys ain't here. And we said, yeah, you're right. And we kept shooting around and stuff and found a brother named Glenn Parks. Snake left here a long time ago, but he said one of the most profound things I ever was have parted to somebody hearing that guided literally defined how I did politics. One of the things that defined how I did politics. Snake said we can start playing anytime we want to. And somebody said, what you talking about? And Glenn said, because we the big boys now. That's our problem. You don't know, you don't recognize when it's your schoolyard. Ain't nobody to wait on. It's your yard, it's your game now.
Yes, because
They gone.
there's been a whole brainwashing for us to always defer, for many to always defer. We have been taught that power is anti-Christ-like. We've been, to defray. We've had this issue in the churches, this whole brainwashing. Then, of course, we have these kumbaya moments that we want to have. So, I mean, once again, this absolving ourselves of personal accountability sometimes is a problem also. I think it's an amalgamation of issues that we have to have. But you're
But I,
100%
So I
right.
think, and you need to look at that power piece within that context too, Larry. That many people don't want the power because of the accountability part of it, right? And it's just kind of purely that. And then some folks actually realize that they suck. So 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 all of those things have to kind of be
so,
on the
but
yeah.
here's who you looking for, and Larry, this goes to your point. You can get to a game at the highest level, sport at the highest level. Let's take basketball because we all like it. And those are the best players in the world. 450 of the best players in the world at any point in time. And everybody don't want the ball at the end of the game.
They do not. They will run from the ball.
Everybody don't. The best players, they don't want the ball at the end of what makes Jordan, Steph Curry, West.
Wardell
I
Steph
said,
Curry.
yeah,
Wardell Stephen Curry.
yeah, right. And that is that they want the ball at the end of the game, and they'll take the responsibility of missing the shot. See, everybody wants to shoot it if they know it's going in, but you don't know it's going in. And fundamentally, that's what leadership is. Somebody got to make the call, man. And sometimes it works, sometimes it don't. And you got to be okay. And I can live with both of them and come back to more. And so everybody really ain't cut out for that. There are people, when he was playing, there are guys that might be physically as talented as uh, Michael Jordan.
I don't know about that.
I said might be.
I don't. That man
Okay,
was
the
that man was
premise,
the most fundamentally
but
sound and the most athletic person in one
but
body.
and I agree with that. But what
But you didn't see the
separated
guy
him?
who ain't get to school.
Yeah, that I
Yeah,
did not
Does
see.
that guy
I didn't
exist?
see his brother Larry play. They say
yeah,
Larry was tougher than him, but that's
right,
correct.
right. But what I'm saying is, but what separated him from everybody else was his mentality and his and what he brought to the game. Because Larry Bird brought the same thing, and he ain't Michael Jordan's physical equal by no stretch of the imagination.
Mm-mm, mm-mm. No,
But just but just as deadly at the end. So
absolutely.
what I'm saying is that's who you're looking for. That's who you want to be, call it the mayor or whoever's in charge. It's like when we used to grow up kind of organically and got socialized going out playing or doing whatever. When you let kids pick the leader, they know who the leader is. When adults pick the leader, they pick the kid that they like and they think is up. But no, if you put 8 or 9 kids together and you watch them, you say he's the leader or she's the leader. And it was like the African concept we're talking about. And it was a democratic choice. That's a hierarchical relation. But the leadership is because he's or she is the best one for our group because they make the best decisions for us, not for themselves. That the leadership doesn't create privilege, it comes with responsibility. The reason you get the privilege is because you got the responsibility. And my metaphor is like the pack leader or the pride leader in nature. If you're the pack leader or the herd leader, you eat first, you mate with who you want to, everything defers to you. But that's for a reason, because when the pack, the herd, is at risk, you answer the call. You come to the front of the line. You don't send nobody up. You defend. And the way I express it, for the life that the pack gives the leader owes the pack that life. You ain't never seen the alpha wolf back off to say, "Oh man, that shit's too hard, man. I don't know if I'm gonna come out of it." No, man, that's why you was picked, and that's why you signed up for it. This is the moment you signed up for.
That is
All them other moments came was the benefit for doing that, because the rest of us wasn't up to it. But this is why we picked you.
absolutely. And that is something we all need to take to heart. And we thank you all for joining us this week. We look forward to being in community and continuing to celebrate and actually bask in this wonderful Holy Black History Month for the centennial. And hit that like and subscribe button. And we look forward to seeing you guys next week. Take care.